Thank you for being here. I want to just acknowledge that if you're in this room and you're an entrepreneur, your time is worth $10,000 an hour. So I truly am honored that you've chosen to spend this hour with me, and I intend to make it worth $10,000 an hour for you for being here today. So as we get started, I'd love to know a little bit about who's in the room in the audience so I can customize what I'm talking about. I've been mingling and interacting with a few of you, but I haven't connected with everyone yet. So I just want to do a quick, I want to know what industries are here in the room. So just like popcorn, throw it out. What industry is your business in?
Construction software.
Construction software?
Financial services.
What?
Financial services.
Financial services?
Consultant. Grant writing.
Okay, grant writing consultant, good, okay.
Public health.
Public health?
Cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity?
Education technology.
Education technology?
Consulting and transportation.
In what?
Consulting and transportation.
Transportation consultant, okay, all right, great. So how many of you in here have yet to hire an A player? Raise your hand. So first off, one of the things, that's a trick question, because when you're a business owner and you're a solopreneur, you are a chief A player in your business. Yes, right? Okay. But I also recognize that you want your next A player, and that's why you're here. How many of you in here have anywhere between 2 and 10 team members at this point? Okay. How about 10 to 30? Anybody in that range? 30 to 100 employees. You guys have a lot.
We got a few.
Okay. Is anybody 100 plus? Okay. All right. So I just want to make a disclaimer, especially to you guys. I usually reserve this information just for entrepreneurs and small business. So this is like insider secrets that you guys are hearing. Because I feel that you all really need to know how to differentiate yourself from corporate America. And so we're going to be talking about what is it that A players are looking for. As we dive in, I want you to imagine, all of you who are entrepreneurs in this room, who are working 80 hours a week, doing it all yourself, I want you to imagine this is you with your family. It's a Sunday evening and you are totally relaxed as you think about the week ahead, because you don't have sleepless Sundays anymore because you have A players on your team who you know will handle whatever comes up on Monday morning. Not only are you relaxed on Sunday evening, but you're thinking about your 2-week vacation that's coming up in a few weeks, where you're going to be able to be fully unplugged from the business because you trust your A players to handle things in your absence. You will not be checking email or texting or bringing your laptop to do payroll while you're on vacation. Relaxed because you have A players. I want you to know I believe in this possibility for every one of you in this room. I know it's possible because I've been helping entrepreneurs do this for a very long time. I think she mentioned 2 decades. So I started when I was 10, but I'm not kidding. For a very long time. And as a matter of fact, I just spent a week on retreat in Austin with some of our longstanding clients, some of whom who have taken 6 weeks vacation unplugged, 4-week vacations unplugged, 9-week vacations unplugged, and they started where you are, doing it all, and thinking, I don't know if I could ever find those A players in my business. So this is totally possible for you. I know that this is you right now. You feel like you're juggling everything. You're carrying a lot of responsibility, not just for yourself, but for your clients and customers, for your team. If you have team, you have your own family obligations. You're juggling a lot of responsibility. And I know you're burning out. And I know you're burning out because I have been researching entrepreneurial burnout and surveying entrepreneurs. We've gotten almost 400 at this point over the last few years to take my Better Business, Better Life assessment, which is a very unique assessment. It's the only one out there that looks at your well-being as an entrepreneur in relation to the health of your business. And what the data shows is that 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs are burning out. And you know what else the data shows? 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs have no system in place to attract A players to their team. I firmly believe there's probably a 100% correlation between those two gaps. And that's what I want to solve. I want to bridge that gap for you with what I'm going to share with you today. I want to tell you a little bit about my journey. That's 5-year-old me with my dad. And my dad is not an entrepreneur, but I grew up in a family impacted by the legacy of traditional entrepreneurship, hustle culture, grind it out. If you look at this photo, we're on a family outing to Hodges Gardens in Louisiana. If anybody's ever been there, you probably know exactly where that photo was taken. And if you look at my dad, he does not look relaxed. He looks pretty preoccupied and stressed, right? When I was a little girl, I would watch my dad scarf down his food and rush out the door to get to work. And my mom explains to me, Sabrina, your dad never got to sit down and eat a relaxed meal as a family when he was a kid. They always ate on the go, out of the concession stand, hot dogs, nachos, soda pop, popcorn. That was the way of life because my grandpa, Slim Starling, was an entrepreneur. He was an oil man, and then he got into drive-in movie theater business. So imagine, it's 1950s, Elvis is booming from the speakers. It's a day of muscle cars. My grandpa Slim has a few service stations, and he's struggling to get business. So he got the bright idea one day to put up a big screen on the back roof of one of his service stations and give purchasers of 5 gallons of gas a free ticket to the show. The idea clicked. Cars came in droves. Filling station attendants couldn't even get to the pumps. And everyone in the family went to work in the business, including my 11-year-old dad. No more playing. It was all about the business. Those businesses, because now he's not just in the service station business, now he's in the drive-in movie theater business. And as you can see here, he went on to have multiple drive-in movie theaters. Those businesses, as successful as they were, ran their lives. I saw my memories of my grandfather are that he was confined to a chair after multiple strokes. And for years, all he could do was pat me on the head and say, "You're my little Miss America." He couldn't communicate anymore. He could barely move. He needed a lot of care. And I can't help but wonder if they had had help finding A players for their businesses, if he would have had a better quality of life in his later years, because I really believe he worked himself to death. I believe work supports life, not the other way around. That's what I've built Tap the Potential around. I started Tap the Potential a long time ago. And I did it when my first daughter was born. I left my full-time job. And I did it because I wanted to be able to be present for her and not be distracted, because I was working 60 hours a week and I was doing on call and all this crazy stuff, and I knew I couldn't be a good mom. And so I committed to working no more than 25 hours a week. And I have grown Tap the Potential all these years, working about 25 hours a week, because limits force innovation and creativity. So you can do this too. And you can do it when you have A players on your team. So when I left my job, first off, I went to the University of Texas, Austin, got my doctoral degree in psychology. I was going to go out in the world and I was going to save people. I was going to help people with mental health problems. I got an opportunity to go to Wyoming and have my student loans paid off through the National Health Service Board. I would do 2 years of service in a rural mental health clinic there. Community mental health. That to me, because I had so many student loans, that was like winning the lottery. I was like, yeah, I'm there. And I wanted another adventure before I settled down in life. I was like, the Wild West. I love horses and wide open spaces. It was calling to me. I was going. So I got there, I took this job, and there was so much need in that community. And there was me and 3 or 4 other therapists, and that was about it. And I worked my tail off. And I got burnt out, and that's when I thought, I need to figure out, I've spent all this time and energy getting this degree in psychology, I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with my skills. I gotta repurpose them in some way, but it's not gonna be staying here, because I was totally fried. And so that's where I learned about coaching. I was gonna be a life coach. and I put out my life coach shingle. I went down to the Chamber of Commerce in Riverton, Wyoming. I met with the Chamber of Commerce director. I told her what I wanted to do, and she said, I'm going to pray for you. Life coach in Wyoming. That'll be interesting. But she said, you know what, do you know anything about time management? I said, sure, yeah, I know a lot about that. She said, would you do a talk on time management? So I did. I talked at the Chamber of Commerce. It was a lunch and learn, very much like this. I got clients out of that talk for years to come. And you know what? I was talking about work-life balance and time management from a life perspective. Do you know who signed up for all my services? Entrepreneurs and business owners who wanted help with work-life balance and time management. And as I dug into it, I realized you guys don't have a work-life balance issue or a time management issue. You have a people problem issue. They wanted me to use my skills as a psychologist to help them get their warm-body team members to be engaged. That's all they would talk to me about is how do I have all these team members that they show up sometimes they don't show up. They work, they see work to be done and they just stand around. Could you help me get them excited about working? Like, no, I can't. There's nothing I can do to help you with that. And I said, look, if you want A players on your team, you have to get rid of these warm bodies because no A player wants to work with that. And I knew that because I had worked with that in the community mental health center. I knew what I was talking about. And they said to me, Dr. Sabrina, you don't understand. We are in a small town. This is a rural area. We are small business owners. It's just the way it is. We have to make do. And I thought, this stinks. And I started to believe them. I heard it so much, I thought, yeah, this is really hopeless. You guys are screwed. I don't know how to help you. And then, have you ever had that experience where you are asleep and you're making this transition from sleep to wakefulness, and all of a sudden a problem that you've been wrestling with for a long time, you wake up and like the solution is right there in your head, and it's like, oh, wow, that's amazing. That didn't happen to me. What did happen is I woke up with this powerful question running through my head. What if it's not true? What if it's not true that because we're in a small town and it's a rural area and we're small business owners that we just have to make do? And that question put me on a quest because I thought, what if I can find some small business owners who have A players on their team? And what if I could talk with them and maybe interview them and they could tell me what they are doing, and then I could go back and tell my clients what they're doing. So, seems like a no-brainer. I set out, I found small business owners who have A players on their team, and then I asked them, can I interview you? And they said, no. I was like, why not? What, help me understand. I'm a nice person. I think people like to talk with me. I couldn't understand why they didn't want to be interviewed. And every single one of them, time and time again, said, I have a couple of good people on my team. I have no idea how I got them on my team. If I lose them, I don't know how to replace them. If you find an answer to this problem, would you please come back and tell me? Because I don't know what I'm doing. So I am pleasantly persistent. And I said, all right, here's the deal. I know you don't want me to interview you, but would you just let me ask you to tell me the story of how these A players came to be on your team? And I'll just keep the recorder going while you're telling the story. It's not an interview. You're just telling me a story about how they came to be on your team. And they agreed to do that. So I collected all of these stories. And then one evening in my living room, I spread them out on the carpet, and I started looking for themes and patterns. And sure enough, there were themes and patterns. And when there are themes and patterns, we have the start of a system. And that is how I came to write my very first book in the How to Hire the Best series. How to Hire the Best, the Rural Business Owner's Ultimate Guide to Attracting Top-Performing Employees. I was going to focus on rural business owners and help them solve their employee challenges. As soon as that book was published, you know what happened? I started getting phone calls from business owners in New York, New Jersey, San Francisco, Denver, and they all started out the same way. I saw your book, my friend gave it to me. I'm not a rural business owner. Do you think this would work? And I said, look, I have no idea. Let's try it. Let's see. And sure enough, what I figured out is if it works in a very sparsely populated area like Wyoming, where there really are more than people, it works exponentially better in more populated areas because you just have more people. And so then I went on to write How to Hire the Best, the Contractor's Edition, because a lot of my clients were in the construction industry. The construction industry has some of the biggest hiring challenges you'll ever encounter. I like to challenge you guys, but I figured that out by now. So I wrote that book. It became an Amazon international bestseller. And I thought, this is freaking crazy. What is going on here? And so I started looking at who was buying this book. And it wasn't just people in the construction industry. It was accountants, bookkeepers, real estate brokers, chiropractors, physical therapists, because they have hiring challenges too. And that's when I realized, all right, I just need to own it. I need to write the entrepreneur's ultimate guide to attracting top performing team members. So what I'm sharing with you today works across geographic location, no matter what population size you're in. It works across industry. There is no reason this won't work in your business, because I've seen it work in all kinds of businesses and all kinds of challenging circumstances. So as we start off today, I think it's really important, since we're going to talk about how to hire A players, we need to all get on the same page about what an A player is. So we're going to start with the definition of what is an A player. You have a handout. I encourage you to take notes, fill in the blanks, make it easy for you to take notes. And the very first fill in the blank is what is an A player. So your A players are resourceful. They take initiative. They go the extra mile. They seek to work smarter. You can count on them to get the job done. A players are good communicators. They work as a team to accomplish goals. And their can-do attitude is contagious on a team. That's an A player. So I'll give you those fill in the blanks again. They are resourceful. The first one is resourceful. Take initiative. You can count on them. They're good communicators. And when working in a clearly defined role with a clearly defined result that aligns with their strengths, A players can be 900 to 1,200% more productive than warm bodies on your team. And I'm going to show you why in just a minute. I hear this question a lot. What if I can't afford to hire A players? I would argue that you absolutely can't afford not to hire A players, and this is why. One A player will do the work of 3 B players on your team. So now we need to define what B player is. Your B players are your steady eddies. They are reliable, you can count on them, but they are not innovative, they are not problem solvers, they may not be good communicators, they may not rally the team together, they don't have the energy. They just show up, and they're reliable and predictable. And it's fine to have B players on your team, but you need some A players. One B player will do the work of 3 C players. So when you talk about what a C player is, your C players are your warm bodies. There is no D and F. It's just C and below. It's all downhill from there. Okay, and I'm not going to teach you how to hire the D and F players. The C players, there's research that says that 85% of our workforce is disengaged. When a team member is disengaged, you are lucky to get 2 days of work from them in a 5-day work week. They are only doing 40% of their effort on the job. Okay, so this is why one A player can get the work done of 9 C players. Okay, so getting back to, can you afford to hire A players? If you have one A player on your team that's doing the work of 3 B players, and you pay that one A player $25 an hour, that hour of work is costing you $25. If you have 3 B players on your team and you're paying them $15 an hour, that 1 hour of work has now cost you $45 an hour. 3 times as much as it's costing you to pay that A player, $10 more an hour than B players. If you have 9 C players doing that 1 hour of work, for 15 an hour. That 1 hour of work has now cost you $135 an hour. This is getting very expensive to not have A players on your team, isn't it? Yeah. If we project this out over the course of a year, 40 hours with an A player on your team at $25 an hour is $1,000 for the week. After a year, that A players cost you $52,000. 40 hours with 3 B players on your team at 15 an hour is costing you $1,800 for that 1 week of work. Over the course of a year, $93,600. So almost double what it's cost you to pay 1 A player. 40 hours with 9 C players at 15 an hour cost you $5,400 that week. After a year, $280,000. Almost 6 times as much as an A player on your team. So when you're struggling to hire an A player and saying, I can't afford them, think, well, what if I could go up $10 more an hour? And remember this, because you absolutely can. This is the key to 10xing your profit. But there's more. There's more to this story than just this. So your next fill in the blank, payroll is typically your biggest expense in a business. Payroll and rent. If you can manage your payroll, you have a significant opportunity to be profitable in a very big way. One top performing employee is 900 to 1,200% more productive than a warm body. A lot of times, we business owners get really busy and we think we must be at capacity, we need to hire. So we run out and we hire, right? Well, when you're hiring A players, the good news is you don't need as many A players on your team. If you're hiring warm bodies, you need a lot of them because they don't get a lot of work done. So the hiring just got easier because you don't need to hire as many people when you're hiring A players. It's costly. I don't know what happened to my emojis there. They had sad faces too there. I don't know what happened to them. It's costly to keep warm bodies because warm bodies make mistakes. They make those mistakes and somebody's got to fix them. Usually the A players on your team that you're paying more. So there's rework. And then you're losing customers. That's not good. And then the worst, you develop a poor reputation in your business community. And Little Rock's kind of small. If you're in Little Rock, your word gets around. And, you know, so you got to keep your reputation up. Not to mention, when you have warm bodies on your team, you just spray that A player repellent all over your business. Because no A player wants to work with all those warm bodies. So we got to talk about your business, because it might be overweight and it might need to go on a diet. When you're in startup phase with your business, you know the number one focus is you got to make sales. You need to get money in the door. And so someone says, I'll pay you for that. And you're like, yes, I'll take your money. I'll do that thing. It's a little outside my scope of what I normally, but yes, I can do that for you. So you say yes to every opportunity that comes your way because you got to get the cash flow, you got to get the revenue going. And you know what you end up with? Just after that startup phase, one of these overweight businesses. We need to slim down your business before you hire. Your business needs to go on a diet. And here's why. The 80-20 principle. If your business is generating $1 million in revenue annually, 20% of your clients and customers are likely responsible for 80% of that revenue. So that's $800,000. That's wonderful to know. And you know what else is really important to pay attention to? 80% of your clients are only responsible for $200,000 of that $1 million in revenue. They're only responsible for 20%. 80%. Do you know who those 80% are? Those are your PETA clients and customers. Pain in the assets. Those are the ones who you can't satisfy. They're not happy. You're doing a lot of work for them. You may be paying them to work for them. They're not your profitable clients and customers. When your business is overweight, you have these 80% in your business. And you know when you feel that need, like I'm really busy and I'm at capacity and I need to go higher. Do you know who you're hiring to take care of? These people. And do you know who you're trying to hire to take care of these people? A players. You want A players, right? Everybody's like, yeah, I want an A player. But if you hire an A player and you stick them with these people, guess what? Get your can of A player repellent and spray it all over your business. You're A player. You don't want to work with these people. That's why you want to hire people, right? Do you think A players want to work with them? No. Put your business on a diet. You need to identify the sweet spot of your business before you hire. Your sweet spot is the intersection of your top 20% clients that are responsible for 80% of the revenue. And by the way, I do want to make a disclaimer. Just because someone is a client, they pay you a lot of money, and they're your top 20%, they may not be an ideal client. They can easily be a pain in the assets client too. So there's a little more than just simple numbers here to hold in mind. But you want to know who your top clients are. You want to know what they think you do uniquely well, not what you think you do. Okay? I'm called the business psychologist. I didn't come up with that. My clients told me that's what I was. You want to know what your top clients and customers call you and how they see you as unique and different. The rest of the sweet spot are the systems that you put in place around your unique offering for your top clients. So when you go to hire A players, you want to hire A players that serve the sweet spot of the business, not the bottom 80% of your clients and customers. They are not in your sweet spot. So when you hire A players to serve the sweet spot of your business and you put them in a role with a clearly defined result that they are responsible for delivering that aligns with their strengths, that is the secret to 10xing your profit with A players. So there's a fill in the blank. It says creating more efficiency by hiring A players to serve the sweet spot is key to 10xing your profit. And I need to make a comment here because this came up in one of the discussions as we were getting started. When you're a solopreneur, when you're going to hire, and you're doing everything in your business and you think, I need a mini me who can do everything in the business and take some of it off my plate. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is trying to hire somebody who can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Somebody who's really good at social media should not be entering data in your bookkeeping system. No. You want somebody who's got a talent and a strength for the clearly defined result that you need them to deliver. One result. And so the key question, I teach the How to Hire the Best course, and I always say, you're going to go through the course, you're going to think about one team member that you're going to hire, you're going to think about if they can only do one thing for you in a given day or a given week. What is that one thing? And then you're going to tell me, how does that relate to your sweet spot? And how does that impact the profitability of your business? That's the result. And then you're going to think about what strengths are needed to deliver this result exceptionally well, day in and day out. And here's an example. Years ago, I got to work with this entrepreneur, and he told me he had a startup, he had a food product, he was selling it in a kiosk in the mall, and I thought I was talking to somebody who was in their late 20s or late 30s. The more I got to know him and the more he revealed, I realized, this guy's just out of high school. He's in his first year or two in college. And he was struggling because he needed help in his little kiosk so he could make the product. And he was hiring his buddies to come work in the kiosk. And he said, I don't get it. They're really good students, so I think they're probably good at good workers, but I get them into my kiosk and I tell them how important it is to engage with the customers and the people, the foot traffic at the mall, and talk to people and get them to come over and try the product. And he said, and they do really good for the first hour, but then I come back and they're on their phones, they've got their backs turned, they're not talking to anybody. And he said, and I tell them the same stuff every day, how important it is to be engaging with the foot traffic, the people walking by. He said, I don't get it, Dr. Sabrina. How come they can't do this? And I said, I'm just really curious, are your friends, like, when you guys go out, are they the life of the party? Are they working the room and talking to everybody? And he said, oh no. He said, I can't get them out of the house on Friday night. They want to stay home and play video games. And I said, oh, you're hiring introverts in a role that has a result that requires extroversion. He made that one change. He started looking for the partiers. He went to the party on Friday night. He was looking at who worked the room. And he also asked them about their grades in school. The ones that worked the room and made A's, he hired them. And they did fine. And he started growing from there. That was the key. So you want to know your one result that you need and the personality strengths needed to deliver that result exceptionally well day in and day out. His friends loved him. They cared about him. But they were introverts, and they were recharging their personal batteries when they were turning their backs and getting on their phones, because that's what introverts do. And I was like, yes, I relate. 5 minutes, okay. All right, so I got to go quickly here. All right, so we've covered this. You have fewer A players on your payroll, so your payroll's biggest expense, costs start going down. A players don't make mistakes like well, they will make some mistakes, but they won't make as many as your warm bodies. And because you have A players on your team and you have your business focused on the sweet spot, revenue starts to go up, and that creates profit in your business. It's challenging to hire A players or find them because only 10% of our population is A players. Okay? Traditional hiring practices set us up to mishire 75% of the time. Traditional hiring practices are deciding you need to fill a job, so you create a job ad, you post it, you start collecting applications, you look through those applications, you decide these few look better than the others, so I'll bring them in for an interview, and then you make a choice from the people who showed up for the interview. But if your pool of applicants is not that good to begin with, you're just picking from the best of the worst. Traditional hiring practices result in 75% failure rate, and it's very costly to mishire. It can cost you up to 3 times the salary. Not to mention, every time you mishire, you're increasing your risk for hiring PTSD, which is going to get below. So, and that's a very slippery slope because you start to doubt your ability as a leader. When you're trying to lead a team of warm bodies, you're thinking, I must stink as a leader, I can't get them to do anything. And then you want to give up and you want to close your business. Not a good place to be. As I mentioned before, 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs lack a system for hiring A players, and you need a system to consistently attract A players to your team. I want to make sure you know about this. This is my free toolkit to help you get started hiring A players on your team. It's a free download. On the back of your handout, there's a QR code. Just scan the QR code, it takes you to the toolkit. The toolkit contains 6 videos in there, like 5-10-minute videos of me teaching you the initial foundational pieces to start attracting A players based on the psychology of A players that I'm going to teach you about here in the next 3 minutes. So, A players are different. The biggest thing you need to understand about A players is they are rarely unemployed. They are working elsewhere. This is why your job ads don't work. They're not reading them. They're not on Indeed looking for work. They may check it out every now and then, but they're not there steady. So you have to figure out how to get in front of them and be the next best opportunity for them. During the height of COVID, when everyone was struggling to hire, I started wondering if the How to Hire the Best system was working, so I reached out to some of my clients. When everyone else was struggling to hire, one of my clients in the landscape lawn care industry, which exploded during COVID because we were all at home looking out at our sad lawns thinking, oh, I need some help here. His business exploded. And when I called him and I said, how's the How to Hire the Best system working for you right now? He said, are you kidding? It's working. Miracles. I just hired 9 crew members in the last 6 months. I was like, whoa. So this stuff works. And he did it because they were working elsewhere and he knew how to get in front of them and recruit them from other places where they were working. A players hang together. You want to become known as an employer of choice in the A player networks. So you got to get to know your A players. You got to figure out what their networks are because they know each other. And when you can tap into those A-player networks and you create a great place to work for A-players, you're going to have a steady stream of A-players who want to work for you when the opportunity arises. You know what A-players want? Respect. That seems so simple, right? And it's lacking in so many businesses, and it's particularly lacking in corporate America. A-players want a voice, they want to be heard, they want to be valued. They don't want to be in the middle of drama, they don't want to be talked down to, they don't want to be spoken to in a demeaning way. If you provide a respectful work environment for your A-players, you are miles ahead in attracting them to your team. Simple stuff. A-players are intrinsically motivated. You don't have to pay them to get them to do well. They just want to do a good job. So you have to be careful with your bonuses and incentive programs that you're putting in place for your C players, because they could actually demotivate your A players. A players love a challenge. They thrive on challenges. If you have a big vision and goals, you need to share it with your A players and invite them to help you figure out how to achieve it. That's part of the respect piece too. They want to know what your why is. You want to set your A players up to be the heroes in the story of solving the biggest problems and challenges for your top clients and customers. Your A players are the hero, not you. Your A players are the hero. They want meaningful work. Again, that gets back to that story that you're going to create. They want real opportunities for advancement, not lip service. So when you're interviewing an A player and you say, oh, we have opportunities for advancement, you better have something documented that shows them how they're going to advance in your company. The number one way to attract your A players is to lead with your immutable laws. And your immutable laws are your core values. They are how you do life. We're not talking about corporate values that some team got together and brainstormed and created a document and now everyone says these are our values, but nobody lives these values. We're talking about real values, how you do life. In that free toolkit that you guys have the link to, I walk you through how to identify your core values and turn those into the immutable laws in your business. You want to talk about your immutable laws everywhere. You guys have a sticker with one of ours, work supports life, not the other way around. The right people see that and go, yes. The wrong people go, whatever, what world are you living in, lady? This is another one of our immutable laws. We lead with love at Tap the Potential. Our top clients and customers love to hang out with our A players. It's like a love fest. Everybody's like, these people are the best. It's the immutable laws. That's the secret sauce. So when you identify your immutable laws to hire A players and attract them, you also start attracting better quality clients and customers to your team, to work with your team. So you want, when you have a great team and you have A players, you want to spread the word and get it out there. This is a postcard one of our team members created. We turned it into a social media post too, so we put it out on social media. It goes out everywhere. The key here is if you have something that attracts A players, if you got it, you want to flaunt it everywhere you go and be visible with who you are to attract the right people. So how do you permanently solve your hiring challenges? You have to become an employer of choice for the A players you want to attract to your team. That is the secret. So on your handout, what do A players want? The fill in the blank. It's right there for you. Great boss and coworkers, interesting, meaningful work, respect, safe, supportive environment, opportunities for advancement, flexibility, and work-life balance. That's what they want. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to become an employer of choice for the A players you want to attract. So one of the fun things that we do at Tap the Potential, as I mentioned, I teach a course on how to hire the best. When people go through the course, one of the hard things about online courses is no one ever finishes them. You sign up, you're all excited. Yeah, I'm going to do that. That's going to help me. And you don't finish them. Well, I'm a psychologist. I put stuff in here and make you want to finish this. So if you do 90% of your move forward action steps in the How to Hire the Best course, we feature you in our Great Place to Work Spotlight, which becomes a third party verifying that you're doing things to work on your culture to make it attractive to A players. So this helps you in your recruiting. I want every one of you to leave here today saying, I want to be an employer of choice. I want to figure out what my A players want. I want to figure out who my A players are, what they want, and how I'm going to bake it into my culture so that I can attract them. That's what it takes. So to get started on your journey, download the toolkit. That's the very first place to start. I do have books in the back if anybody wants to read a book. I'm happy to sell you a book. But this is really where you're going to get your start. And for those of you who want to go further, there is a course, and you'll learn about that as you download the toolkit. I want to stop here because I want to take questions, and I want to invite you to connect with me. So I have the Profit by Design podcast. Every week, tips, tools, and strategies for entrepreneurs to design a sustainably profitable business that gives you a life. And we have a Mighty Networks community. Come hang out with us over there. I'm doing a lot to add value in the next quarter in our Mighty Networks community, including talking about A-player development plans that we were mentioning before. And I'm on LinkedIn and all the other places. So I want to open it up for questions. I want to hear what you thought, like, oh, I'm excited about this, or oh, I don't understand this, or that part. I think you were way wrong on that. I'm always happy to hear that too. So, questions, comments? Yes?
Very invaluable information. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I noticed that a lot of employers, after you apply, they have the survey that you have to take.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you think is usable? What are your thoughts on the surveys that personality?
Oh, personality. Okay, so I want to caution all of you on doing personality testing ahead of employment, because not all personality tests are EEOC compliant. You have to be very careful. I see, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just saw that person using that test. I don't want to know if they were using that test because it's not validated for that particular use. So be careful. If you're an employer, be careful about personality testing. In the How to Hire the Best course, I use a very simple tool called the People Map. It's a 6-quadrant personality, or 4-quadrant personality. And when you use the People Map, you get really good at just sussing out people right away and figuring out their personality strengths. So it's not a formal, you're not formally testing people before they're coming on for employment. You can do it after. You can do all those wonderful personality tests after they're employed with you. That's fine. Yes?
What about interns, like right out of college?
Yes, what about
You know, they're a blank slate, but how do you tell which ones have the potential?
It all goes back to you identifying the key result that you need from that individual and thinking through what personality strengths are needed to deliver that key result exceptionally well day in and day out in the business. So I have an intern working at Tap the Potential. I hired someone just out of college who's my stepson. That was a risky hire in a lot of ways. And he had to go through the whole process that we put everyone else through. And he's learning, he's in a sales role, blank slate. He sold Cutco knives once for a few months, but that was it. And it's really about making sure that his personality strengths align with what he needed to do in that role. He's a great connector with people. He builds relationships. He's golden, and I can teach him skills. We can teach skills. We cannot teach personality strengths. Yes?
I have a comment, but also a salute to you. I just sat here and realized, oh my God, literally, I have been an A-list player for so long. And what made me now come to that conclusion is I remember I was always the one that was delegated, get this done, and I felt like, well, what's wrong with these other 3 people?
Right! You were the one, and they were the 3!
Right, and when you talk about the warm bodies, and I'm a clinician, I work in addiction, but I pivot, oh yeah, we see each other. So I pivot into, becoming an entrepreneur. And I remember during my exit interview, I remember telling my supervisor, I had been doing the work for 2 people
Yes.
and I wasn't getting paid for it.
Yes.
And I always needed help because of the role that I was doing. And she gave me the blanket stare because I remember when we got the funding, it said right there, this is the amount of workers you will need, this is what you'll need to pay for them. But I was doing the work.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I needed help. And she said, well, is this the reason why you're leaving? And I said, because I never got the support that I needed.
Yeah.
So, aha moment, great presentation, by the way.
Thank you. Many entrepreneurs have a history of being the A player in an organization, dealing with a mess of 3 to 9 other team members.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you connected that dot for yourself, because it's going to help you be an employer of choice for A players, because you get it. You're one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself working with search firms that just want to bring this to organizations? Or do you kind of not get in between or work, not that triangulation, you go directly to the corporation?
So recruiting
Yeah.
firms, I'm very careful with them because recruiting is a numbers game.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of attention to the immutable laws of the business and making sure that the team member the candidate has immutable laws that align with the immutable laws of business, and it can result in a lot of mishiring, and it can become very expensive for a business to work with those firms and have those mishires. So we have a few that we work with that do pay attention to that, and what happens is if you have your immutable laws defined and you're very clear on what you're looking for, you will be more successful with those firms, but you have to be firm with them and say, don't waste my time with people who don't have these qualities.
What's your background that you came to these conclusions? Were you in corporate America?
I was a psychologist by training. I worked in that rural community mental health center. I worked, as I went through graduate school, I did internships in all these major large organizations. And I was amazed that these were organizations run by psychiatrists and psychologists who should have their stuff together. And it was just a rampant mess of drama and politics and lack of organization. And I thought, if psychologists can't get this right, how can we expect people who have a business background or tech or whatever to get it right?
So while you guys are formulating your questions, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have about 2 minutes to the top of the hour. We are so fine with, staying over a few minutes so you can ask Dr. Starling some questions. But I just wanted to give you guys notice of that.
And I'm going to, after the presentation, I'm going to be in the back room back there if you want to buy books or if you want to come up and talk to me. So I can stay till about 1:30. So you had a question?
I just wanted to say that I really admire how you took your career along with a passion, along with a purpose. So how you aligned it all, where one could have looked at it as it being convoluted. You came from a solution-oriented perspective.
Thank you.
So I really love that.
Thank you. It was convoluted in my head for a long time.
Trust me.
It took me a while to see all the paths that life had led me on and how it all came together.
Yes, keep it up.
Thank you. You too.
So I've been in talent acquisition, 20 plus years, and I think my biggest takeaway was how you broke down the financial picture. So I'm on the nonprofit workforce development side now, but boy, could I have used your financial breakdown to go to compensation,
Yes.
departments or whatnot, and say, this is why I need a bigger budget. Because I can't afford the A player. You're only budgeting me like a paper pusher or whatnot.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
that was really, really profound in my head.
Good. Good. I'm glad. All right. I think we need to wrap it up.
Okay.
I'll go back to the
Before we do, I just want to say that